And I want to start this off with a little bit of an apology. For those watching the video on YouTube, it'll look like I'm distracted by my phone, but I'm not. The laptop is having some issues today, and for some reason is not really loading much of anything. So I'm using my phone to check out the reference material so I can read it. And in reference to such, as always, a disclaimer will be down below, but I need to remind you that this is not the definitive interpretation of this material. The original material is what it is. You will perceive it however suits you at the time that you receive it. And this show is in no way the only interpretation of this material. So I highly suggest you go seek it out yourself. If something I say or something that is read here today interests you, and do your own study. So with that, we're going to jump right into session 14, which happened January 29th in 1981. And this starts, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite creator. We communicate now. Questioner. Going back over this morning's work, there's an inaudible piece there. You said the second density strives towards the third density, which is the density of self-consciousness or self-awareness. The striving takes place through higher second density forms invested by third density beings. Could you explain what you mean by this? Sorry about that noise. I forgot to mute the laptop. Ra responds, I am Ra. Much as you would put on a vestment, so do your third density beings invest or clothe some second density beings with self-awareness. This is often done through the opportunity of what you call pets. It has also been done by various other means of investiture. These include many so-called religious practice complexes which personify and send love to various natural second density beings in their group form. So basically, second density is helped by third density, which is us. We are breaching into fourth, but in general, humans are third density. And just having pets, we help their existence strive to become what we are. Questioner. When this earth was second density, how did the second density beings on this earth become so invested? Good question. Ra responds, there is not this type of investment as spoken, but the simple third density investment, which is the line of spiraling light calling distortion upward from density to density. The process takes longer when there is no investment made by incarnate third density beings. So basically, there is a natural progression from second to third, as there is from third to fourth, fourth to fifth, and so on. But it does take longer than when another higher density being is working with the lower density beings. Then what was the second density form? What did it look like that became Earth Man in the third density? What did he look like in the second density? Ra responds, I am Ra. The difference between second and third density bodily forms would in many cases have been more like one to the other. In the case of your planetary sphere, the process was interrupted by those who incarnated here from the planetary sphere you called Mars. They were adjusted by genetic changing, and therefore there was some difference, which was of a very noticeable variety, rather than the gradual raising of the bipedal forms upon your second density level to third density level. This has nothing to do with the so-called placement of the soul. This has only to do with the circumstances of the influx of those from that culture. So, in my understanding, this is saying beings from Mars came over and influenced the creatures on the planet to become the human bodies that, or some form of these human bodies that we currently inhabit as the souls on this planet. It was less natural, as our current science likes to put out there. Questioner. I understand from previous material that this occurred 75,000 years ago. Then it was our third density process of evolution began. Can you tell me the history, hitting only the points of development, shall I say, that occurred within the 75,000 years, any particular times or points where the attempts were made to increase the development of this third density? I am Ra. The first attempt to aid your peoples was at the time 75,000. This attempt, 75,000 of your years ago, has been previously described by us. And there's a note, let me check that. Previously described in 9.6 to 12. So session 9, question 6 to 12. The next attempt was approximately 58,000 of your years ago, continuing for a long period in your measurement with those of Mu, as you call this race, or mind-body-spirit social complex. Mu. I'm going to have to check that. The next attempt was long in coming and occurred approximately 13,000 of your years ago, when some intelligent information was offered to those of Atlantis, this being of the same type of healing and crystal working of which we have spoken previously. Another note there, spoken previously in session 2, questions 2 and 3. The next attempt was 11,000 of your years ago. These are approximations, as we are not totally able to process your space-time continuum measurement system. This was in what you call Egypt, and of this we have also spoken in 2:2. The same beings which came with us returned approximately 3,500 years later in order to attempt to aid the South American mind-body-spirit social complex once again. However, the pyramids of those so-called cities were not to be used in the appropriate fashion. Therefore, this was not pursued further. There was a landing approximately 3,000 of your years ago, also in your South America, as you call it. There were a few attempts to aid your peoples approximately 2300 years ago, this in the area of Egypt. This has been corrected by Ra to 3,300 years ago in session 17, so we'll get there. The remaining part of the cycle, we have never been gone from your fifth dimension, and have been working in this last minor cycle to prepare for harvest. So the harvest is happening now, to some degree, in my understanding. All of these historical things that he referenced, you may be able to find some factual things about. I choose to believe what Ra is sharing here. I don't know, just something about this text feels that way for me. I've listened to it multiple times, as I've stated previously, in audiobook form. And every time I listen to it, I just love everything I hear about it. It just feels right. I don't know, everything feels right. So what is being said here is that Ra is still here in the fifth dimension, which means they are here helping our progression. And I'm assuming that would mean they are also helping out with the light system in what they're doing. I'm sure I'm not sure, but I'm assuming that they could be a part of that. It seems like a safe assumption to me. Working with their projects. I mean, it could be any sorts of things, but they're choosing to hang out. Granted, this was in the 80s. I highly doubt they're gone. I feel like I had some communication with the Ra complex personally a little while ago, when I was getting pretty deep into trying to communicate with these things. I've strayed from that a bit. I would like to get back into it, honestly, but so yeah, Ra is still around helping, at least at this time. Questioner: was the Egyptian visit of 11,000 years ago the only one where you actually walk the earth? Ra responds, I am Ra. I understand your question distorted in the direction of selves rather than other selves. We of the vibratory sound complex Ra have walked among you only at that time. So Ra was only there 11,000 years ago. I understood you to say, this is the questioner again, I apologize. I understood you to say in an earlier session that pyramids were built to ring the earth. How many pyramids were built? Ra responds, I am Ra. There are 6 balancing pyramids and 5 to 52 others built for additional healing and initiatory work among your mind, body, spirit, social complexes. So this is where we start to learn the significances of the pyramids around the planet, what they're used for. I think we get into why they're there. That's part of what they're used for. And I believe at some point, I can't guarantee that it's this session, but there is talk of how. So that's pretty huge. Questioner, what is a balancing pyramid? Ra responds, this is a pretty big deal. I am Ra. Imagine, if you will, the many force fields of the earth in their geometrically precise web. Energies stream into the earth planes, as you would call them, from magnetically determined points. Due to growing thought-form distortions and understanding of the law of one, the planet itself was seen to have the potential for imbalance. The balancing pyramidal structures were charged with crystals, which drew the appropriate balance from the energy forces streaming into the various geometrical centers of electromagnetic energy, which surround and shape the planetary sphere. So these balancing pyramids were put in specific locations with specific crystals to help balance the energies of the planet itself, not necessarily only for the inhabitants, but it does all work together. But the energy of the planet helps with the bodies on it. Questioner, let me make a synopsis and you tell me if I am correct. All of these visits for the last 75,000 years were for the purpose of giving to the people of Earth an understanding of the law of one, and this way allow them to progress upward through the 4th, 5th, 6th densities. This was to be a service to Earth. The pyramids were used also in giving the law of one in their own way. The balancing pyramids I'm not quite sure of. Am I right so far? Ra responds, I am Ra. You are correct to the limits of the precision allowed by language. So there's, as we talked about before, the whole intricacies of trying to communicate with our verbal language. For Ra. Questioner, did the balancing pyramid cause the Earth from changing its axis? Even I feel that way. I am Ra. This query is not clear. Please restate. Questioner, does the balancing refer to balancing of the individual who is initiated in the pyramid, or does it refer to the physical balancing of the Earth on its axis in space? Much more precise question. Ra, I am Ra. The balancing pyramidal structures could be and were used for individual initiation. However, the use of these pyramids was also designed for the balancing of the planetary energy web, like I said a moment ago. They can be used for personal initiation and the healing processes involved with the balancing and all of that, but they were also put in to balance the energy on the planet as a whole. The other pyramids are not placed properly for Earth healing, but for healing of mind, body, spirit complexes. It came to our attention that your density was distorted towards what is called by our distortion understanding of 3rd density, a premature aging process. We were attempting to aid in giving the mind, body, spirit complexes of 3rd density on your planetary sphere more of a time-space continuum in one incarnation pattern in order to have a fuller opportunity to learn, teach the laws or ways of the primal distortion of the law of one, which is love. So these pyramids were put there by Ra and other parties. These other ones, these additional ones, not just the balancing ones, but these additional ones as healing places to help extend the lifespan of humans on the planet, because the lifespan was shrinking drastically at the time, and I believe that's spoken about later on. But the lifespan is shrinking a lot because of all of the diseases and, sickness, dis-ease that's going on. And these pyramids were put there to have healing processes to help extend the lifespans of everyone that can have access to them. And that is a service. That is a service to others. And that is a big deal for positively polarizing entities, which Ra is. So it's very rad. Now, I don't know what that reference is now into kind of how the aging process is for humans. It's still shorter than it was previously, even within some written histories. There's things of like Jesus' time where people living multiple hundreds of years, whether or not that was in reference to these pyramids that were around, or, and it's definitely about the foods and the air that was around at the time. But I hope that that will continue to grow, because that will definitely help. But we're at the point now where we're getting into fourth density. So does third density matter that much here at that point? Right now it does, yes. And in the future it will have some relevance, but eventually, just like Venus, Earth will no longer be able to cater a third density experience. So I don't know. It's kind of just one of those things. Questioner: I will make this statement. You can tell me if I am correct. The way I understand it, the balancing pyramids were to do what we call increase the lifespan of entities here so that they would gain a more wisdom of the law of one while in the physical at one time. Is this correct? I am Ra. This is correct. However, the pyramids not called by us by the vibrational sound complex balancing pyramids were more numerous and were used exclusively for the above purpose and the teach learning of healers to charge and enable these processes. So maybe I misunderstood previously. It was the balancing ones, but there are also other ones. Questioner: George Van Tassel built a machine in our western desert called an Integratron. Will this machine work for that purpose of increasing the lifespan? Another just random question that he has, and it happens. I am Ra. This machine is incomplete and will not function for the above mentioned purpose. Questioner: Who gave George the information on how to build it? I am Ra. There were two contacts which gave the entity with vibratory sound complex George this information. One was of the Confederation. Good thing. The second was of the Orion Group. The Confederation was caused to find the distortion towards non-contact due to the alteration of the vibrational mind complex patterns of the one called George. Thus, the Orion Group used this instrument. However, this instrument, though confused, was a mind-body-spirit complex devoted at the heart to service to others. So the, shall we say, worst that could be done was to discredit this source. So this guy was building a machine that's supposed to extend life. He got contact from the Confederation and, oops, I said out of the thing, and from the Orion Group. And I'm not sure about the whole discredit thing. This isn't really, this isn't connecting with me a whole lot at the moment. It's just kind of one of those random things that is nice and funny to where their topics just kind of go off, and it's cool. Questioner: Would there be any value to the people of this planet now at this time to complete this machine? I am Ra. The harvest is now. There is not at this time any reason to include efforts along these distortions towards longevity, but rather to encourage the distortions towards seeking the heart of self. For this, which resides clearly in the violet ray energy field, will determine the harvesting of each mind, body, spirit complex. So this kind of leads into the pyramids at this time. Is there really a reason to go into it? Well, no, because we're transitioning into fourth. So we need to work on the spiritual development of all of souls incarnate here instead of the physical longevity. Questioner: Going back to the start of the 75,000 year period, there was the harvesting 25,000 years after the start, which would make it 50,000 years ago, I would assume. Can you tell me how many were harvested from our planet at that time? I am wrong. The harvest was none. Questioner. There was no harvest? What about 25,000 years ago? Was there a harvest then? I am wrong. A harvesting began taking place in the latter portion as you measure time-space of the second cycle, with individuals finding the gateway to intelligent infinity. The harvest of that time, though extremely small, were those entities of extreme distortion towards service to the entities, which now were to repeat the major cycle. These entities, therefore, remained in third density, although they could, at any moment, present nexus, leave this density through use of intelligent infinity. So there were some in that second cycle, from 25,000 to 50,000 years, that were capable of harvest, but actually chose to stick around. We'll find out later on one of the major ones. Questioner. Then the harvest 25,000 years ago. The entities who could have been harvested to the fourth density remained here in service to this planetary population. Is this correct? I am wrong. This is correct. Thus there was no harvest, but there were harvestable entities who shall choose the manner of their entrance into fourth dimension. So they can hang out. When a soul reaches that point, they're able to choose how they would like to go into it. Questioner. Then for the last 2,300 years, there's a note here. This has been corrected by around 3,300 years ago in session 17. Okay. So then for the last 3,300 years, you have been actively working to create as large a harvest as possible at the end of the total 75,000 year cycle. Can you state with respect to the law of one why you do this, just as a statement of your reasons for this? This is interesting to read and listen, but also just ends up making sense when you consider everything. I am Ra. I speak for the social memory complex termed Ra. We came among you to aid you. Our efforts in service were perverted. Our desire then is to eliminate, as far as possible, the distortions caused by those misreading our information and guidance. The general cause of service, such as the Confederation offers, is that of the primal distortion of the law of one, which is service. The one being of the creation is like unto a body, if you'll accept this third density analogy. Would we ignore a pain in the leg, a bruise upon the skin, a cut which is festering? No, there is no ignoring a call. We, the entities of sorrow, choose as our service the attempt to heal the sorrow, which we are calling analogous to the pains of a physical body complex distortion. So what is basically said here is it doesn't make sense to not help. Because we are all one body, we are all one being, we are all one, hence the law of one. We are all the same. So when there is a pain in this body, you choose to heal it, whatever it may be. Questioner. At what density level is Ra? Ra. I am Ra. I am 6th density with a strong I am 6th density with a strong seeking towards 7th density. The harvest for us will be in only approximately 2.5 million of your years. And it is our desire to be ready for harvest as it approaches in our space-time continuum. Seems like a long time, doesn't it? 6th density. That's high. 6th density is a planetary level complex, to my understanding. Questioner. And you ready yourselves for harvest through the best service you can provide. Is this correct? Ra. This is correct. We offer the law of one, the solving of paradoxes, the balancing of love light and light love. And that's something we can all learn from there. The progression throughout the densities is simply that, sharing light and love. It's difficult here. It can be very difficult here. But everyone just wants love, understanding, And as you're able to see past yourself and realize that we're all the same here, it definitely helps. And it's a huge thing. I'm not here trying to teach you how to progress or how to be happy or anything like that. There's other creators out there, there's other people out there that do that. I am here to share this information and provide links down below for people to access it, to just help educate. Not educate you on what you need to do, try to tell you what you need to do, but just to make sure, to the best of my ability, that this teaching gets everywhere it can go. And if my little chunk of listeners here, and viewers, which I graciously love and appreciate to a massive degree, get anything out of this, that's more than enough. And even if you're here and you listen to this and you're like, I just want to check it out for myself, that's just as good. Check it out for yourself. Buy their books, buy their audiobooks. It's worth it. But like I said, I'm not here to tell you what to do, how to do anything. I'm here to share this material, share my feelings towards it, my thoughts about it, my sort of understanding of it, which is very, surface level, and hope that others will gain access to it. Because I love you. Questioner: how long is one of your cycles? Ra: I am Ra. One of our cycles computes to 750 million. 75 million of your years. Okay, there's a note here. When Ra first recites the digits for this number, they indicate 750 million, but then they state the number as 75 million. Don seeks clarification in the next question. Questioner: 75 million? Ra, that is correct. So 75 million, roughly, of our years is one cycle of sixth density. Now, if you compare that to our 25,000, it's a huge difference. And it's stated multiple times, and it is reminded throughout the process quite a bit, that third density is the shortest and hardest density of existence to go through. Questioner: in your service and giving the law of one, do you work with any planets other than the Earth at this time, or just Earth? I am Ra. We work only with this planetary sphere at this time. Questioner: you stated that you were called by 352,000 Earth entities. Does this mean that this number is the number who will understand and accept the law of one? Am I correct? I am Ra. We cannot estimate the correctness of your statement, for those who call are not in every case able to understand the answer to their calling. Moreover, those who were not calling previously may, with great trauma, discover the answers to the call nearly simultaneously with their late call. There is no time-space in call. Therefore, we cannot estimate the number of your mind-body-spirit complexes which will, in your space-time continuum distortion, hear and understand. I feel like that makes sense. Traumas do lead to spiritual evolutions and understandings and all of this, and the call and the trauma and then the understanding can all happen like that, especially in their understanding. So it makes sense. Questioner: how do you perform your normal service? How have you normally given the law of one over the last 2,300 years? How have you, granted that is adjusted later on, session 17 to 3,300 years. How have you normally given this to Earth people? I am Ra. We have used channels such as this one, but in most cases the channels feel inspired by dreams and visions without being aware, consciously, of our identity or existence. This particular group has been accentuatedly trained to recognize such contact. This makes this group able to be aware of a focal or vibrational source of information. So Ra communicates in multiple ways. Questioner: when you contact the entities in their dreams and otherwise, these entities, I assume, have to be first seeking in the direction of the law of one. Is this correct? I am Ra. This is correct. For example, the entities of the nation of Egypt were in a state of pantheism, as you may call the distortion towards separate worship of various portions of the Creator. We were able to contact one whose orientation was towards the One. Questioner: the trauma, I'll just call it that. I assume this will, as the cycle ends, have some inconceivable. There's another inaudible portion. There will be some entities who start seeking or get catalyzed, you might say, into seeking because of the trauma, and will then maybe hear your words through possibly telepathy or written material such as we will publish as this book. I am Ra. You are correct, except in understanding that the inconveniences have begun. Major trauma, to me, is what brought me to this material. Major trauma for you might be what brought you here. It's important, in my understanding, to remember that it doesn't necessarily matter how you got here or what brings you here, why you're here. All that matters is that you're here, you're learning, you're growing. That's what matters. The healing will come. Questioner: can you tell me who is responsible for transmitting the book OAHSP? OAHSPE. OAHSPA? I apologize. I am Ra. This was transmitted by one of the Confederation's social memory complex status, whose idea, as offered to the Council, was to use some of the known physical history of the so-called religions or religious distortions of your cycle. That came out of nowhere. In order to veil and partially unveil aspects or primal distortions of the law of one. All names can be taken to be created for their vibrational characteristics. The information buried within has to do with a deeper understanding of love and light and the attempts of infinite intelligence through many messengers to learn those entities of your sphere. Questioner: have there been any other books that you can name that are available for this purpose that have been given by the Confederation? I am Ra. We cannot share this information, for it will distort your discernment patterns in your future. You may ask about a particular volume. This is not the first time that this happens. This is not the last time that it happens. Ra is very conscientious about distorting negatively entities. Obviously, they're a positively polarized entity and will not infringe on free will. Questioner: the Urantia book, which I haven't read, who gave that? I am Ra. This was given by a series of discarnate entities of your own earth planes, the so-called inner planes. This material is not passed by the Council. I'm assuming that means it's not necessarily good for a positive entity to read, but I cannot say that for a fact. There's many things that I will say here not matter-of-factly. If you read that book, the Urantia book, Urantia, I would appreciate some input. Either contact me directly at asktherawcast@gmail.com or comments on the YouTube videos. Questioner: the Edgar Cayce material. Who spoke through Edgar Cayce? I am Ra. No entity spoke through Edgar Cayce. Questioner: where did the information come from that Edgar Cayce channeled? I'm guessing that's how you say his last name. It's Cayce. I am Ra. We have explained before that the intelligent infinity is brought into intelligent energy from 8th density, or the octave. There's a note here. Explained before in session 4, question 2, session 5, question 1, section 6, question 1, section 11, question 8, and section 11, question 20. The one vibratory sound complex called Edgar uses this gateway to view the present, which is not the continuum you experience, but the potential social memory complex of this planetary sphere. The term your peoples have used for this is the Akashic Record, or the Hall of Records. This is the last question which you may now ask. So Edgar Cayce was able, according to Ra, to access the Akashic Record, whatever you'd like to call it. That is a important and difficult ability to have. So that was the end here. I'm going to go through the last little bit. Questioner: is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or help during the transmission? I am Ra. We only reiterate the importance of alignment. This instrument is placed 0.2 degrees away from the direction of the resting place, which is correct. This may be eyed, shall we say, by sight, and the instrument reminded. You are being conscientious. Is there any brief question we may answer before this session is closed? Questioner: can you tell me if we are accomplishing our effort reasonably well? I am Ra. The law is one. There are no mistakes. Remember that. He didn't say that. They didn't say that. I did. I am Ra. I leave this instrument in the love and the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, therefore, rejoicing in the power and the peace of the one creator, Adonai. And that, my lovely listeners and watchers, was the Ra Contact, session 14. And funny enough, as I finish reading it, it finally loads on the laptop. That's okay. My phone worked. My neck's a little sore, but it's fine. It's worth it for you. So like I said, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them in the comment section down below. You can contact me directly at asktherawcast@gmail.com. I'm fairly certain that's in the description of every video. If not, I will put it there. And I've been considering possibly doing a new little section at the end of the videos here, where the uploads, the podcast, whatever you want to call it, at the end, where I seek out and read reviews that were left by listeners and watchers. And this will go into also if there are questions in the comments. So if there is a comment that pops up that I feel may require a little more response than just a quick little tap on the keyboards, I could do that there as well. So let me know if you would like to have that. And if so, then I'll do it. Because if there's any way I can help, I want to try to do it. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, everyone. My name is Aaron, and this has been the Rawcast, session 14. Much love, and we'll see you next time.